So we got this first game, Max against Jurgis, and actually, this game was played in 2023 in the Wakaze. Now, the white pieces, his name is Max. Actually, I already said that. So Max rating is 2616 and Black's rating, Jurgis, is 2637, and they played the Roy Lopez. So let's get started. The first move that started off this Roy Lopez, if you don't know what it is, I would say which move that initiates it. It starts off with e4, e5, and then after the move e5, move this board out the way, knight to f3. After knight to f3, knight to c6, and then which move initiates the Roy Lopez? Can you tell me which move initiates the Roy Lopez for the white pieces? Let me know. Because I know that everybody in the stream wants to get this chess knowledge, chess wisdom, chess understanding, because that's pretty much what y'all all about. Ron, you are correct. Bishop to b5 initiates the Roy Lopez. Now, yesterday we went over the Italian game, which was bishop to c4, which is already posted on my YouTube channel. It was like an hour-long lesson. Bishop b5 initiates the Roy Lopez. Spooky, you are correct. And so after bishop b5, the opponent did the move knight g to e7, which you will not see more often. You're probably going to see knight to f6 more often. But this is actually a variation called the Casio defense of Black. And hey, you're going to learn how to pretty much put pressure on the Casio defense if you ever see it, if you're going against the Roy Lopez, if you're an e4 player. So after knight g to e7, knight to c3, just developing normally. And then we got the move knight to g6, and that's the whole point of the Casio defense, is taking that knight to g6 and probably getting a quick knight to f4 or knight to h4, possibly attack, maybe on the king side. It could happen, or your opponent could do the move h5, h4 very quickly if you do not know what you're doing against the Casio defense. But understandably, Max knew what he was doing. So first he did bishop to c4, maybe putting that bishop on a more desirable square on the a2 to g8 diagonal. And so after putting that bishop on c4, not really caring about that knight on c6 anymore, bishop to c5, and then what move would you guess next for the white pieces in this position? Because this next move is kind of surprising, but not exactly, since most people use this type of move in the opening nowadays, especially most grandmasters. This has become like super popular to do in like the opening or in the middle game. So what would you say here is a popular move to do? What would you say here? Just making sure everything's good. All right. And actually, after bishop c4, there haven't been any master games recorded with the bishop c4 line. Okay, most of you. Let me see. Chappie, you're saying castle king side. I get that. d3. That's too, guys, that is too boring. All right. I need some more excitement, some more exciting moves. All right. What is an energetic move that white can do in this present moment? What is an energetic move that can be done here? Okay, knight to d5. Okay, that's a little bit energetic, but it really doesn't have a purpose yet of putting the knight to d5. Now, one secret, like chess principle that you can sometimes do, just generalizing, if the knight is either on b6 or g6, you can push up the end pawns to try to threaten that knight to go to a different square. And that is actually a big hint. So after saying that, what would you think? Knight to g5, threatening f7. But remember, knight g5, queen takes on g5, and that is dunzo. Chappie, you are correct. And I know this is surprising, but Max did the move h4. Now, after h4, it's not really a I know most people will be like, what? You're not supposed to move pawns in the opening. You're not supposed to do that. That's breaking the chess principles. Aren't you supposed to castle your king doing d3 and things of that nature? Well, remember, if you're playing the opening, you can do forcing moves. And this h4 pawn is threatening to do the move h5, moving this knight to a different square. And so, after doing the move h4 in this position, the opponent did h6. And then, what do we got next? What would you say here? What would you say here in this position? Bishop takes on f7. It could happen. That does seem a little bit dangerous, but there really isn't a follow after bishop takes on f7. Okay, castle kingside is an option, and I'm not even saying that those are bad options. All right, don't get me wrong, right? Doing d3, castle and kingside, those are very solid options. And actually, you can't even castle kingside anymore because knight takes on h4. So when you do an h4 pump, right, when you move Hector up to attack or threaten your opponent's pieces, we got to be careful because this is a weakness now. Just a little bit. You are loosening some weak squares. Knight takes, then pawn fork. Knight takes, then pawn fork. Oh, so you want to do knight takes on e5 or either knight and then d4. I get that, but after the knight takes, remember your bishop on c4 will be undefended. So, and I see the position, somebody saying h5. Well, actually, now, which is kind of confusing, but he did the move knight to d5. After the move knight to d5, which now you can do h5, and if your opponent tries to do knight to f4 after you do h5, you can take that knight off the board and then do a quick d4. Now, I know this is kind of confusing because white could have did knight to d5 first, but he decided to do h4, this sequence, for a reason, all right? And so that is the reason why he did knight to d5. So if h5 happens next, let's just say that it's white's turn. But let's say that it's white's turn again. This is how you should think if you're thinking about your opponent's best move. h5, knight to f4, knight takes on f4, e takes on f4, and then d4. This might be already a winning position for the white pieces. Controlling the center, developing pieces, bishop is going to probably take on f4, and etc. And so, after the move knight to d5, which is a clear threat of doing that move h5 now, the opponent did knight g to e7. After knight g to e7, we got the move c3, which kind of goes along the lines of the Ruy Lopez doing the move c3, and then what next? You already know what's next. After c3, castle kingside in this position, and the move that I was gonna say, d4 or d3, can still be played here, but actually white did another exciting move, which made a constant attack on the opponent's king side, because castle and king side is a little bit dangerous, especially with our h4 pump. What would you do next here for the white pieces? Now that I said that, it's not d3 or d4, which still could be played here, but white actually went another route, trying to attack the king on g8. What would you say here? What would you do if you're the white pieces? You're trying to put pressure on your opponent. Okay, so Ron's saying d4. I get that, and that is still a legitimate move. Do not think so. And not just, I mean, that would be your plan, but what would be Mac's plan? What would be this grandmaster's plan to put pressure on the opponent? Because most of chess is putting pressure on the opponent to make a mistake, and then after our opponent make the mistake, take the opportunity to harp on that mistake so that we can get a winning position, and then after getting the winning position, we convert that winning position into like an official point, a win for us, and then we can be glad and happy, and then that Friday we can get pizza or something and congratulate ourselves. And so after, okay, so that's h5 could be played here, right? And y'all can comment too. Anybody can comment. It doesn't matter if it's a bad move. I'm not gonna ridicule you for doing a bad move. And most of the moves that y'all have been saying have been pretty understandable. Knight takes on e5. Oh, to do the d4. Well, after knight takes on d4, knight takes on e5, knight takes on e5, d4, get the fork. The knight can still take on c4. Our bishop is still undefended, so we got to be careful. And actually, is that Clark Meister? That's a funny username. Clark Meister, you are correct. A knight to g5 is actually a move that can be played here, because if h takes on g5, h takes on g5, and then next up, you already know that queen h5 is going to be ready to checkmate the king on g8, and it's pretty legitimate right now. And this is a quick attack that is happening in the Ruy Lopez. Most people view the Ruy Lopez as being boring because you can go into like the Ruy Lopez Berlin defense, but now we got a position like this where we're already sacrificing a knight. All right. So it mostly depends on the variations that you go towards. And the Rory Lopez is really good at like, per se, poking the bear with certain variations. And that was actually Jan Nepo's strategy against Magnus Carlsen in that World Chess Championship, but it just didn't work out because he was facing Magnus Carlsen. But after knight to g5, knight takes on d5 in this position. And let me just say this before we continue. The Rory Lopez is a very solid opening, and I would consider it to be one of the oldest and the best because it's good for beginners, especially if you're just now learning the opening principles, and it's good for beginners because the moves are pretty simple, and the strategy is pretty simple too. Like most of you is already suggesting c3, d4. Yeah, you're not gonna see the moves h4, but y'all suggesting castle kingside. This is very simple gameplay if you're playing the Rory Lopez. And so let's get back to the game. After knight to d5 and all the influx of people that just came in here, we're trying to figure out the best moves for the white pieces. And I'm going over the Rory Lopez this whole live stream. And so after knight to d5, e takes on d5, attacking a knight on c6, and then we have a crazy move by our opponent, b5. After b5, attacking our bishop, and now we're attacking their knight on c6. What do you think Max did here as the white pieces? What would you do in this position? What would be your go-to? Let me get my water right quick. Shoot. A knight takes on f7 is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. that might be a little bit crazy. All right. Remember, in the Rory Lopez, even though that white's pieces are very aggressive, you still got to be a little bit patient. And in the Rory Lopez too, it's you can put a lot of there is a lot of tension over the board since in most variations you pretty much have all your pieces still. I don't think it's d takes on c6, right? Yeah, it's not d takes on c6. It's not that move. D takes on c6, what? B takes on c4, and then you would just take that d pawn, bishop takes on d7. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Our king is still in the center too, just FYI. Well, he's already doing crazy moves. Yeah, that is true. That is true. That is my bad. But grandmasters are really good at because they're prepared in these openings. So yeah, I am just striking out with this position that y'all not prepared for. Bishop takes on b5. Hint. It's a very quiet move. That's your hint. My dog, what's up? Hey Gibbs, how you doing? It's a very quiet move. That will be my hint. After b5, what quiet move does white do in this position? And grandmasters are really good at putting the pressure on and then just pulling it back. They know the right times to do so, right? And Magnus Carlsen knows it, Hikaru Nakamura, and Ron, you are correct. The next move is actually just going bishop to b3 because in the Rory Lopez, that bishop is probably your most important bishop, especially since that bishop is aiming at the king right now. And maybe some sacrifices in the future could happen on that f7 square. And we just got to keep that imagination in our head because usually in chess, our imagination comes true. And hopefully I proved that in my last live streams that if you just think this way and maybe you can direct the game to go towards that way potentially. And so after bishop to b3, knight to a5, attacking our bishop on b3. What is the next move since I just said that? What would be the next move by the white pieces? We got Gibbs in the building. What's good, man? What's good? Ron, you are correct. Bishop to c2. Bishop to c2. And like I said before, you got to keep that bishop. That bishop can be important. And actually, we already got some threats of bishop to h7 or knight to h7. So that's how important that bishop is. And so after bishop to c2, knight to b7, and then what happens next? What would you do here? What would y'all do? What would y'all guess in this position? We throwing the pieces. We can throw the pieces. I don't really care. I don't really mind. As long as this is entertaining and as long as I'm giving you as much value as possible. All right. I've been teaching for like a decade now. Bishop h7. Bishop h7 is attacking the king on g8, but after king h8, I really don't know what would be the follow-up. And that's the problem with attacking prematurely or too early. B4. B4 is attacking the bishop. So I'm liking the forcing moves because we should be thinking of forcing moves, which is checks, captures, and threats. But we got to think of like the right ones. Bishop h7 maybe? Yeah, Gibbs. So after bishop h7, king h8, there's not really a follow-up for the white pieces unless you want to go down the road of knight takes on f7 next, which is kind of, I don't know. I don't think that's winning. You're just giving away pieces at that point. But how can we get more pieces to the king side? How can we get more pieces to have a successful attack after bishop to h7? What would be our strategy there? Castle king side? Not exactly yet. Not exactly yet. Because that rook is really good on the h file. And if we castle king side, shoot, maybe h takes on g5 could happen and we would just be losing. Rook h3. Okay, there we go. That's more energetic. What's another powerful, strong move that we can do? Queen h5. Yes, that is the move. Queen to h5. Remember, do not forget about the heavy hitter. That's the queen. That's usually the piece that we either checkmate with or that we sacrifice for a checkmate. That's the piece that we need around the king side if we're attacking. And so after queen to h5, d6, and then we have this move, a d4. After d4, blocking this bishop on c5, e takes on d4, and then in this position, now he decided to castle king side. Now he decided to castle king side because there's no repercussions of not having the rook on the h file, because we already know if h takes on g5 happens, what is the next move for the white pieces? Gibbs, nobody said you was dumb. Yeah, that was just a really good move. You got to get that heavy hitter in there, and that's that lady. You know, sometimes you got to let the lady call the shots. Like blop, blop, blop. Like Rihanna, for real though. Yeah, checkmate. Queen h7, because that bishop on c2 is doing a wonderful job on that b1 to h7 diagonal. And so after, let's push that pawn back. So after castle king side, the opponent decided to just block that whole diagonal with the move f5, which is pretty smart. But actually, even though it's pretty smart, it could be a mistake too. You should review some people chess games. Yeah, I could do that. I'm just gonna have to plan that because usually I have like a lesson plan and I have like a main goal that I want everybody to understand after my chess lessons. What's up? Just got back from a coffee shop that I had on Monday Night Chess. Hey, I got 5 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Tonight pretty good. Okay, I see you, Cardu. Hey, glad to have you here, man. After the move f5, white actually messed up because they could have did rook e1 and just kept on going with the attack, but they did knight to f3, which is a very human move because the h-pawn was attacking the knight on g5. And we don't know what kind of like time, it doesn't really tell me the time control what is going on here. So after the move knight to f3, d takes on c3 in this position. And then, oh crap, it went to the end of the game. No. After d takes on c3 this position, what do you think white would do next here? What do you think white's next best move is? Must have been some pretty good players to beat you. Yeah, Cardu, for real though. Yeah, and for the people that is in here right now, we're trying to figure out the best moves for the white pieces at this present moment. We got a game, Max against Jargus. Max rating is 2616, and Black's rating is 2637. And we're going over the Roy Lopez's whole live stream. So for all my E4 players, you already know. You can take this knowledge wherever you want. And if my mic starts acting up, just let me know. What happens when you play knight to e6 forking? Well, it's not exactly forking because of that bishop on c8 that would just capture that knight. Yeah. B3. So B3 is getting out of that danger of that pawn, but that is a little bit too slow for this position. And Chappie, my guy, my friend. Hey Chappie. I'm never looking at the camera. Hey Chappie. You are correct. Bishop takes on h6. After bishop takes on h6, the opponent, he didn't recapture that bishop back. Not at all, because that would be too risky. And so he just did c takes on b2. And after c takes on b2, rook a to e1. And what if I told y'all that this game is completely equal? What if I told y'all that this game is completely equal by AI standards? Would y'all believe me? One, if you believe me. Two, if you're like, nah, that's whack, bro. Did you see today's daily puzzle in the Discord? Mongol Bird thought he could trick us. Nah, I didn't even see it. Yeah, that Discord be lit sometimes. They got over like 2,000 members. That was right. Yeah, Chappy, that is right, because you're kind of dismantling the kingside pawns that is surrounding our opponent's king, in which that's pretty much the purpose of what you want to do if you start attacking their king. I feel like after that knight fork and then bishop takes, you have the pawn untaken back. What? My engine bar has a slight advantage to black. Yeah, just a slight. Okay, here's the thing. You gotta really look at the engine bar right quick. If it's like 0.3, it really doesn't matter. If it's 0.3 anyway, it really doesn't matter. Like once it gets over 0.5, it's kind of like, okay, there's like a slight advantage here and there. When it's like 0.1 or 0.2, that's like only something that the engines can figure out. But from your own human understanding here, which side would you rather play? The white side or the black side? Because in this position, doesn't it look like black is the one that's being attacked right now? Doesn't it look like white is like driving the position more than the black pieces? What would be your plan if you're playing the black pieces anyway, since the chess engine is saying that black has like a 0.3 advantage? What's your ELO? My USCF rating is 1800, and my online chess rating on chess.com, leadchess.org is around 2100. Why has a lot of protection? Yeah, and white has a lot of protection on their king. So which side would you say that is more dangerous? And those are the questions that you should be asking instead of depending on the chess engine's evaluation. And that's why I would say it's really bad to like look at chess games with the chess engine, especially if you're studying like a book or something. I wouldn't even just focus on the book. Just focus on, like, find the mistakes first that you did in your own game before turning on the chess engine. Because human perspective is very different from the chess engine. White pieces. I would rather play the white pieces any day of the week than the black pieces. I mean, just look at, if I was judging this position by my human standards, just look at all these, move back. Just look at all these pieces on the queen side that is not defending the king right here. The only thing that is defending this king is the rook on f8. And you're expecting me to defend all of white's attack in this present position right now when all my pieces are on the queen side doing nothing? Just think about that. The rook on a8 is trash. Knight on b7 doesn't even have any good squares. Bishop on c8, at least it's doing something, protecting like the f5 pawn. The rook is protecting the f5 pawn, pretty much blocking this bishop on c2. But still though, like that's half of our pieces basically not doing anything. White has a lot of protection. I think black is winning. Okay, I guess it just depends on the personality here, because if you like defending, hey, by all means, you can take care of the black side. But I like to be the one at least like trying to attack, because it's easier for me to like not pretend, but it's easier for me to like figure out the next move to keep the initiative. And so after the move rook a to e1, queen to f6 in this position, and then we have the move bishop to d2. After bishop to d2, a bishop to d7, and black is like getting the pieces out slowly but surely. What next move would you do for the white pieces? I like white's position personally. Oh yeah, exactly. And now look at the chess engine. If you're keeping up with it, now it's 0.4 plus 0.4 on white side. Like even the chess engine doesn't know what they're doing. Knight g5 could happen, right? But after knight to g5, queen h6 pretty much blocks the checkmate on h7. So actually white thought of a different move, which keep that knight g5 move in mind, because you might going to have to use that in a later variation here. What was after bishop d2? So after bishop d2, there was bishop d7. Yeah, keep that knight g5 move in mind. Bishop g5. Bishop g5 is attacking the queen. I do get that. But then after bishop g5, and maybe, and I'm just ballparking it right here, but bishop g5, queen f7, like trying to get a trade of queens and pretty much trying to, actually, after queen to f7, I don't even know how to get out of that trade of queens, which could be possibly a losing position for us. So I don't know. I don't know about bishop g5. Bishop Shadow Mysterious. What's good, man? And you got the right answer. You got the right move here. Bishop to c3. Bishop to c3. Why? Well, let's analyze this right quick. Let's just go into it because you're going to have to understand. Like I was saying before about who was that person that suggested that one move? Z1GZ. If queen takes on c3, what would white's next move be? If queen takes on c3, what would white's next move be? No gruel? Yeah, it's a really good sacrifice. The weird part is, even after bishop c3, it is still equalized. That's a nasty, wow. Does that no? Yeah. After queen takes on c3, knight g5 is pretty much a forced checkmate in 4. Knight g5 is a forced checkmate in 4. And like by forced checkmate, I mean like your opponent pretty much sacrifices pieces like bishop takes on f2, checking the king, and maybe queen takes on e1, etc. I don't mean it like stopping checkmate with good moves, you know what I mean? And so after bishop c3 in this position, to all my people who would rather have the black pieces, what would your best defensive move be? But what if they don't take the sacrifice and rather move queen back? Yeah, we're gonna get into it because the opponent didn't take the bishop on c3. But I want to prove a point here. To all my people who wanted to be on the black side here, what is the best defensive move for the black pieces? What is the best defensive move? Because there's only a few good moves here. Actually, there's only 2. There's only 2. Rook a to e1. Queen f7. Okay, nope. Now queen f7. Queen h6. Ron, queen h6 is what the player did here in this position. The only 2 best moves, and this is my point of why like chess engines is really bad for like learning how to play chess here. The only 2 good moves in this position is to do bishop takes on f2 and g6. Bishop takes on f2 and g6 is the only good moves in this position. And Ron, we're going to go through the move. What happens after queen goes to h6? And this is why it's really hard to defend, and you're going to have to like take your time to analyze the board as much as possible. And definitely you can't be using all your time on like silly moves in the opening. And so after queen to h6, what do you think white did here in this position? Because now this is busted for the black pieces. This is busted. And Chappie, you are correct. Rook to e7. Rook to e7. What was that? My name is Buffalo. Why spend any time at all? You gotta spend some time in the opening. Come on, unless you're really prepared, unless you're like Fabiano Caruana, which can just blitz out moves like it's nothing in a classical match. Do y'all see this? Rook to e7. Sacrificing Our Lady on h5. What happens after the queen takes on h5? Well, we're gonna find out next time on... No. Queen takes on h5 was the next move that was played here. After queen takes on h5, what is the next best move? What would you say here? Because this is pretty much the only option for black to do. At least get a queen out of it. Yep, Z1, you are correct. Because now you not only realize that this rook is on the 7th rank, but this bishop is taking care of this diagonal, which sets up for something. After rook takes on g7, checking the king, which is completely busted. Let me just remind you of that. King h8. After king h8 in this position, we have the move a rook to f7, king back to g8. And after king g8, rook g7, and king h8. And I'm just gonna go off on a gander here that both players were behind on time. But after back to rook to g7, king to h8, what is the best move for the white pieces? How should they continue? How should they continue? Because we're still gonna have to be precise. We lost our lady. We lost our lady. So by losing our lady, we still gonna have to defend. Rook g5, rook g5. Can rook g5 work? Yep, it can work. That's not the move that he played though. He played something a little bit more romantic, poetic in a way. And yes, chess can be poetic in a time, you know what I mean? Chess can be poetic. Rook to f7 is, yeah, rook back to f7 can be a draw if it happens like 2 more times. That could be threefold repetition, guys. Threefold repetition if I got Invisalign in, is if a position occurs 3 times without a pawn moving in a position. Rook takes on d7. Yep, rook takes on d7 was the move that was played here. And for all my players who said rook g5, that was winning too. And after rook takes on d7, rook f6 was played. Because if rook f6 didn't get played, then there was going to be a certain tactic. What was that tactic name? Can y'all tell me? It starts with a W. What would have been this tactic name if the rook didn't go to f6, if the king would have went back to g8? What would have happened here? It starts with a W. Do y'all remember what that tactic name is? We win? No, it's a specific tactic. Because if the rook didn't go to f6, winning? No. It's called a windmill, guy. Why was knight g5 not an option? Wouldn't it have won the queen? Knight g5? You mean rook g5? I love the winning tactics. No, it's called a windmill. Y'all ever heard of that before? If the king would have went back to g8 instead of rook to f6, then rook would have went back to g7, king h8, rook takes on c7, and it's not going to be threefold repetition because you're capturing a piece every single time. So king goes back to g8, and then rook goes back to g7, king h8. You just take all the pieces on the 7th rank. That's called a windmill. So back to this position, okay? Back to this position. Black didn't want that to happen. He didn't want that windmill to happen. And so that's why he did the move rook to f6 to kind of stop that, all right? Okay, Shadow Mysterious. Okay, we're trying to figure out the best moves for the white pieces because we're going through all like the games and ideas of the Roy Lopez's live stream. Can't have a windmill without the win. I guess so, if you want to be that creative. But after bishop takes on f6, you are right, Chappie. You know, we're gonna take the material while we still can. I mean, they have our lady. We had to sacrifice our lady to get this windmill, to get this winning position. And so after king g8, what happens next? What would you do? What would you do here? How would you end this? How would you get the win? Because the win is the most important thing, right? You got the winning position. It was given to you, basically. Now, how are you going to win? Your opponent is like an injured animal. They're going to be alert. They're just waiting for the opportunity, right? You're going to have to make sure that you don't give them no opportunity to draw or come back and win. It happens all the time to chess players. Don't let that happen to you. And Chappie, you are correct. The rook went back to g7. And after rook to g7, king f8, what happens next? What would you do? This is the position. What is the best move for the white pieces? Rook g7. Yeah, Spooky, you are right. That last, I don't know if it's delaying on your screen. Maybe it is, but yeah, we already went to rook to g7, bruh. Gotta fast forward it. No girl. Bishop e7. Well, who is that? Spooky. We gotta be careful of moves like bishop e7. Because, it's okay. Like, keep on trying to give me moves because as you learn, as you improve, then that makes me happy. All right. I want everybody who watches, I want you to be able to beat me. Like, I'm fine with that. As long as you keep on improving. As long as you get this chess knowledge, chess wisdom, chess understanding, like always. And so after bishop to e7, king takes on g7. That would be the move that would pretty much be upsetting, and we wouldn't win. But getting better at something means actually trying. Come on, don't be like that, Buffalo. Nah, get him out of here, Buffalo. That's not fair. If you had a kid, right, and your kid did a stupid move, you wouldn't be like, nah, you gotta try, bud. Like, you wouldn't do that. So why would you act that disrespectful to somebody else? And so, I think somebody already set the move. Knight to g5 is the next move. Okay, I will start working at becoming the best. Knight to g5. After knight to g5, the opponent just started tilting, right? And so he just gave away the bishop on f2, because why not? After bishop takes on f2, rook takes on f2. And then now finally he got his knight into the game. You remember I was talking about this knight, that pony over there on b7? Now it's coming into the game, which was like really lazy in the beginning. What would be the next move for white? How can you seal this? How can you seal this deal right quick? How can you make sure you tell your opponent, mentally of course, that, hey, I'm superior in this position and you're going to get checkmated in the next few moves? What would you do? You're the white pieces. You're max. You're chilling right now. Your queen got taken, but their king is sorry. Their king is sorry right now. And so after the move knight to c5, what are y'all saying? Knight to h7? Knight to h7 can be played. There's a lot of winning moves here, but what is the move that Max done? All right, knight to h7 is winning. There's a lot of moves that is winning, but there is one move that is just clearly winning. There's one move that is like, come on, you can't survive this. Because, you know, Grandmasters is not used to resigning, especially if they're ahead of like rating points than you. They like look down on you and be like, hey, I'm not going to give up. If you don't show me that you can win this, I will get a draw. Just looking down on you. Knight to e6 could be winning. The king is for k, and the knight, you just use a n. Yeah, k is for king, n is for knight. Bishop takes on f5. Potentially, yes, that is winning too. But actually, the move which I like a lot in this position, Max just did very simply. Bishop takes on b2. After bishop takes on b2, this move happened on the board. I'm not kidding. This move happened. Like there's too much pressure on the field. The next move is going to be rook takes on f5, checking the king on f8. That was going to be the next move, and this game was going to be lost. So black did this move, queen to e8, and then now we get to like see a beautiful checkmate. Now we get to see a beautiful checkmate after queen to e8. What is that? Just rude taking that pawn. Yeah, that is pretty rude, just taking the last potential pawn that black needed to, like, I don't know, come back into this game. That is pretty rude, but it's like a reality check to your opponent. It is a big reality check. Hey, Chess22. Hi, you're the yeah, I am the TikTok guy. Yes, I'm the YouTube guy. I'm the Instagram guy. I'm everything in one. So rook takes on f5 isn't checkmate in one. But you know what is checkmate in one? Knight to h7. My eyes, bro. My eyes. Can y'all still see? Like, what? What? This is blinding me. Like, am I a vampire? Like, what? What? Why did the other guy move the queen there? It just happens. We're human. It just happens. And like I said before, they must have been low in time for them to do like those last few moves. But yeah, black's position was really hard to defend, and that's why it ended up with checkmate and won. Why is this checkmate? For all my beginners, let me explain right quick. No, I'm legally. No, chess 22. No, I'm sorry. You gotta love a knightmate. Yeah, the knightmates are really beautiful. Let me explain this checkmate right quick. This rook is taking care of the whole 7th rank, and this rook is taking care of the whole g file. So this king cannot go on e7, f7, or g8 because of this rook on g7. Can this king capture this rook on g7? No, because of this bishop on b2 that is defending that rook on this diagonal. All right. So that's why the king cannot capture, because if you put your king into check, that is a illegal move. And so the only piece that is attacking this king, because this rook isn't, is this knight on h7 that is delivering check on this king. And this king would wish to go to e8, but this queen is on the square, and we know that we cannot capture our own pieces. So this is checkmate. Hopefully that explains everything. How long the lesson will last? It's gonna last for another hour and 30 minutes. Can you go when black played bishop to f2? I would have played it queen to h4. Well, that position is already busted. Thanks for the game, h1. Got homework to do, so have a good night. Okay, Chappie, you too. You have a great night too. All right. That position was already busted. Queen h4. Oh, you mean queen takes on h4 in that position after knight to g5? No, there was checkmate in 2. We can go back into that position, but there was checkmate in 2 actually. Yeah, let's go back to that position so I can show that other checkmate. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, ooh, that's even more ugly. I'm not gonna lie. So you're saying instead of doing bishop captures on f2, and this pawn is right here on b2. This is the position. And you're saying, what if black would have did queen takes on h4? Understandable. I get it. If the queen would have took on h4, what is the best move for white? Wait, I'm late. Was this in a professional game or a puzzle? This was a professional game. This was a professional game that was played in 2023. Pivorlai, I think that's your name. I don't know. Knight to e6, checking the king. And you know the disappointing part is that bishop is attacking the queen on h4. But if the king moves to e8, since the king wasn't checked by the knight on e6, what would you do other than taking the queen on h4? What would you do? Where's checkmate in 1? Yep, this is mate in 1, this position. This is crazy. This is completely busted. Not knight to e7, and I'm just gonna guess that you mean rook to e7. Right. Rook to e7, checkmate. Let me explain to all the beginners why this is checkmate again. Bishop is protecting the rook on e7, so that's why the king cannot take the rook. This knight is covering the d8 and f8 square, so the king cannot move to d8 or f8, or that will be a illegal move. And the king cannot go to d7 or f7 because this rook is taking control of the whole 7th rank. And so this is checkmate. And you know what's more disrespectful about chess is that like just take my queen. Don't threaten to take my queen and then get checkmate on me. That's even more disrespectful than, you know what I mean? Like, at least respect me as a human.